If you work in a high-growth company where the headcount doubles or triples every year, or even less, then you know it is hard to build a proper team that can cope with that much change, and above all, teams then need to be high-performant, follow the culture and deliver things, most of them like magic, in a short time between different hells and freezing cycles. In short, how can organizations cope, build and sustain teams in growth cycles and demand? And now, about this. Let's admit it, in high-growth companies, the odds are the teams won't be stable, performant, and above all, sustainable to maintain culture, quality, deliver the best, and retain people. And with the high-growth companies, I'm referring to those that double the headcount every year, or less, or that have multiple engagements at once, and they demand high volume of resourcing. Also, with teams won't be stable, I'm aiming at those teams that can't keep the same number of resources at the same quality and deliver the best value. But the problem is that businesses, growth and targets don't stop. You still need to bring new people in, interview them, on board, and help them transition to a performant team and keep the deliverables going. It is hard to do that with the same pace, always. So, what's the best way to add people to existing teams in this high growth, complexity and environment? Well, I'm glad you asked. Let's then focus on some possible ways, starting by looking at some team structures for this purpose, as we can have several options. We can have the sink or swim, where you keep the older teams as is and add new people to brand new teams. This keeps teams stable and likely ensures that all new teams will struggle. The split and absorb, where you split up the older teams, also known as not stable, and absorb new people in the new teams. This means there's a mix of veterans and newbies or even trainees. And last, the absorb and split, in which you add new people to existing teams, but this will eventually lead to teams becoming too large, also known as not stable, and splitting, also not stable. It is normal that on these teams, the number of newbies or trainees outnumber the veterans or experienced folks in this high growth environment. So, the whatever default culture you think you might have with your team will definitely change, sometimes faster than you think. The culture will end up being whatever new people bring with them. So, the selection of the right people that can enhance, complement, or even not ruin the current team is key and should be the main driver for addressing the issue. Usually, the structure is stable where strategy is also stable. The other side of that coin is that structure should be flexible where strategy is volatile. For example, when you're starting engagements or when you're still defining a strategy or direction, the teams will need to be flexible, adaptable, and expectations should be set to the level of transactional and not fixed. But if the strategy and direction of engagement is stable, then the team setup can be stable, aiming for senior or veteran folks to settle down and lead different teams. Expecting a stable team with an unstable strategy is like believing in Santa or, lower taxes? Culture eats strategy for breakfast is a famous quote from the legendary management consultant and writer Peter Drucker. To be clear, he didn't mean that strategy was unimportant. Rather than the powerful and empowering culture was the best and safest route to organizational success. So if you're not deliberate about culture, especially basic underlying assumptions, but also reinforcing with espoused beliefs and artifacts, you will have random strategic problems. Bottom line, default culture and creating teams in high-growth organizations becomes whatever new people bring with them, unless you are much more deliberate in occupying that space. So there are at least 3 ways to occupy that cultural space when building teams. The rich modeling, where you bring influential, veteran people to walk the talk and practicing what they preach, or you build a systems type approach, where structure, policies, and tools reinforce the desired behavior and outcomes, and for that you need to have a clear strategy and direction of your engagements. And finally, the solution most companies go for: the symbols culture for teams, where all those organizational mythology elements become into practice, like slogans, stories, value statements, to remind everyone what they need to be standing for, where their individual cynicism is a work of art to visualize and any role modeling isn't even considered. So, what do you think? Let me know in the comments below.